This
Everyone,
conference will now be recorded.
welcome to the April 20th Stratford Housing Partnership meeting. We will call to order at 12:01. You guys are very prompt. I like it. Okay, so first item on the agenda is to approve last month's minutes. So is there any commentary on the minutes, or do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Harold. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, great, thank you. So the next thing on the agenda is a presentation by Tara Petroselli. I see your screen, so I think we are in good shape. Do you want to take us through your presentation? Welcome.
Hi. So I'll start here. Hi, everybody. So this is just a brief breakdown of the CDBG program. So the first slide we have here is just the program history and primary objective of the program itself. So we have, just the basic primary objective is the development of the viable urban communities. And then we just want to provide decent housing, suitable living environments, and expanded economic opportunities with this grant. These are just the national objectives that the program calls for, which is benefit to low and moderate income persons, aid in prevention of slum and blight, and meet any urgency that's happening in the town as far as emergencies go. So we have eligible activities, and these would be the related to housing, and as you can see, it's all, I'm just reading off. Public facilities, real property activities, public service, economic development, and administration. So the low mod clientele benefits, and these are just the options for meeting for that activity. So it's presumed clientele. It's always required 51% of participating participants documented as LMI. Activity participation limited to LMI only, and nature and location indicate LMI benefit. So we just want to look at the areas within town, any programs within town that could benefit from these grants. But again, they're all geared towards low income and low income activities. So we have, now these are the presumed clientele. So obviously elderly is always going to be number one. Severely disabled adults, battered spouses, abused children, homeless persons, migrant farm workers, persons with AIDS, and illiterate adults. Keep in mind that the person with AIDS is normally going to fall under the HOPWA program, but the CDBG program as an umbrella does help with that as well. So if anyone has any questions while I'm going, or just please feel free to stop me. So area benefit we have is the area census tract must be in a primary low mod income area. So, a lot of activities more in the South End and different parts of Stratford. We're very lucky that we don't have as big of an urgent need for low income activities here, which is always a plus for us, but it hurts our dollar when it comes to these grants. Also activities that benefit all residents of the area. So it has to be a public program that every resident in town can use. And then typical activities, water, sewer lines, parks, community centers, and then area must be primarily residential as well. So we have some examples of park projects, improved park facilities. There's examples of public service need, which, we can get certain medical equipment, programs for children, elderly, disabled, senior programs as well. And then we have some economic development, like so the micro enterprise development training and education are just mainly, we can fund programs that are going to benefit the economic development of the town, which, training, employment training and things like that for low income residents is hugely helpful, especially like computer classes and things. So then here, I think, is where more of the interest comes in for this group, would be the eligible housing activities. And these are things that we can do with the CDBG funds. If we had the home funds as well, you can expand more from there, but these are the activities that can be done currently. Homeowner rehab. And again, keep in mind, this is all based on the amount of funding that we get each year. So back some years, we got a little bit more funding, and I know we did some sort of a down payment assistance program, but housing rehab is available as well. There are some home purchase activities, and then rental housing, including acquisition, rehab, new construction, and then there's housing services. So the homeowner rehab is basically, I can read what's in front of you, but it's breaking down, energy efficiency. If, there's a roof leaking, anyone that's elderly or disabled and low income obviously can't fix that on their own. So these programs then pick up that portion as far as emergency repairs, even weatherization, and handicap accessibility is huge with these types of programs as well. So now these are some home purchase activities. So this can, for the housing partnership, CDBG funds may be used to provide direct home ownership and assistance to LMI households in two ways. So as direct ownership, a separate and permanent eligibility category that allows CDBG funding too, we can then provide up to 50% of a required down payment, which we've done in the past. We can help with closing costs. We can provide principal write-down assistance and subsidize interest rates, finance acquisition of housing occupied by the home buyer, and acquire guarantees for mortgage financing from private lenders. So these are some activities that we can use these funds for as well. And as it says here, as a public service activity, however, this eligibility category is limited to down payment assistance only and would count towards 15% public services cap. So we have a public service cap every year, and with this pot of money we get, the down payment assistance is the main go-to, but again, it does touch our public service cap, which just for instance, this year, I just had my grant year for year 49 start, and I got about $120,000 in requests for public service, and based off of the amount of the $630,000 we're getting, that had to be cut down to $94,000. So that cap would be very important to watch out for, but that's why I'm here. You don't have to worry about that. And then there's activities that support development of housing for LMI persons, such as acquisition, clearance, site improvements, and that's when the land is in public ownership, and that's also eligible for CDBG. So as a town, we can acquire a property, but we have to make it available for public use. And then providing assistance to private individuals and entities to acquire for the purpose of rehab and rehabilitate properties for use or resale for residential purposes is also eligible. So again, you can private individuals, but you have to have it open to be used publicly as well. Did someone have, I thought I heard something. Question? No. Okay, so rental housing. CDBG funds may be used for acquisition of property for eligible rental housing projects. So it could be used to rehabilitate rental housing. It can, conversion of a closed building. So if there's a building that the town wants to acquire, we can, acquire that and turn it into something that's more like public type low income housing. We can provide loans in form of grants and loan guarantees. We in the town, city previous, we had a down payment loan program where we give a loan to homeowners, and they do have to pay it back after a certain period of time, or as time goes on, it lowers by a percentage. but you are required to keep up these properties for at least 5 years when you do something like that. So as far as like the town here, we do put liens on properties, and a lot of homeowners and people looking to get assistance don't want to do that. So they continue to move on and look for other funding. And then it can also be used to compensate property owners for the loss of rental income occurred while holding for temporary periods, housing units for relocation of households displaced by CDBG activities. That would probably be a really serious occurrence. That's really only happened to me once when I was working within Bridgeport, but that was based off of the ESG program. So again, don't forget there's 4 different programs within CDBG. That's CDBG, ESG, HOPWA, and HOME. So they all would fall under the same umbrella as well. And then we have the housing services that can be provided. So CDBG funds may be used for acquisition of property for eligible rental housing projects. Services that are related to housing activities may qualify under several eligibility categories of the CDBG regulations, including, so it would be a public service activity, housing counseling, like my grant currently funds Bridgeport Neighborhood Trust, who does housing counseling for residents of Stratford. So and they provide the information that they are helping residents of Stratford. And then another housing activity would be preparing work specifications for CDBG funded rehab projects. So just generally referred to as a program delivery cost, which would be like a survey or something of that nature. So, and these are the ineligible housing activities that we cannot help with right now. So generally new construction of housing is not eligible. So nothing brand new, which makes sense. Direct mortgage guarantees. So we can't, pay for someone's mortgage insurance. There's responsibilities that the owners would have to pick up, especially, insurance and things like that. And then the purchase of construction equipment. So if a contractor bids on a project and doesn't have the proper equipment, or someone's bidding and they think, oh, well, I'll just throw in an excavator, I don't know, to help out. And that is definitely not a cost that we can cover. And then mortgage or utility payments, except an emergency guarantee. A grantee can provide up to 3 consecutive months with payments made to the service provider when provided as a loan and when provided by a CBDO as a part of the project. Now, before I came here, we got some COVID funding, and I know that the Economic Development Office offered a micro enterprise grant, and every business that was low income at the time was able to provide information, and they were able to get, I believe it was $10,000 per business for emergencies to keep the business running, the lights on, everything being paid. So that's something we also provide for homeowners in a pinch, in a crisis. We can help cover those costs as well. And that's it. So if anyone has any questions, or I'm glad to send this this PowerPoint as well. I find it to be helpful when looking to see what you can and cannot do.
Go ahead, Glenn.
Tara, thank you very much for this. I do think having the slides would kind of help people. You had indicated, I guess, that Stratford gets $630,000, and I think the partnership should know that pretty much that's the amount that the town gets every year as a result of this program. So if we're in program year 49, I think, at the beginning of the program, we weren't getting that much, but this is a significant amount that's available to help the community address the objectives of the program. And not every municipality in Connecticut gets the CDBG formula grants. So for Stratford to have this money supplement what we're trying to do is really kind of critical. Tara, do we get funding under each of those 4 sub-programs that you had mentioned? CDBG was one, Home was another. So is that just the CDBG? Are we eligible for funding under the other programs as well?
So the funding in itself for CDBG is all formula based. That being said, it's based on the census tract and the need of the community. So I use this always as a for instance, Bridgeport has a much greater need and it's a much larger city.
Yep.
They have all 4 programs. Here, HUD has deemed that we are eligible for 1, which would be just the regular CDBG program, not including home, ESG, or HOPWA.
Yep.
Who's to say that we will not get that funding? Susmitha and I actually just had a conversation before this meeting to potentially meet with the head of the Hartford field office to find out how we can, because we can't just request it. As much as I wish we could, it's all based on formula. So if you see going from year 45, which was 3-4 grant years ago, the amount that was received was 449 and some change. So it has increased a little bits over time. So the hope is the better and the faster we spend the money with the eligible activities in a timely manner, and HUD considers that before May 1st, then we get the increase. But as far as the need with home, ESG, and HOPWA, personally, I don't think we have the need for ESG and HOPWA. ESG is the Emergency Solutions Grant, and that's more to pay, help landlords pay utilities and things for their rental properties, anything emergency life-wise. So if their lights are off, their, the furnace is broke, or those kind of things, ESG picks up. HOPWA is the program that helps homeless individuals that have AIDS. And again, Bridgeport has that sort of a need. I know from working there for many years. And we're very lucky here that we don't have that need that they do. But I do feel that we do need a little pot of the home funds, because that would help our housing, board here and projects within town, because the money that we do get, the 630,000, we are then required to put out applications or put out an ad for applications to come in. And that money goes to all the 501c3s within the town. So that doesn't really leave unless we decide as a town that we're going to take X amount of dollars and put it towards homeowner rehab or a down payment assistance program or something related to housing. So that's where.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think it's probably important for the partnership to realize that the money does get spent every year, and the applications come in, and there's a public participation process to review and evaluate the applications that come in. So in the absence of a big municipal program for blank, the money does get allocated amongst many organizations in Stratford who have similar missions to what we're trying to accomplish.
Yes.
That decision is actually kind of critical as to how the funds get allocated. In some years past, I know the town was very involved in sidewalk construction, which didn't directly benefit individual homeowners or properties, but it did provide a benefit in low, moderate income neighborhoods. So those decisions are important. So Tara, one last thing, I think is as part of sending up a slideshow, if you could also prepare a map that would show the members of the partnership, the actual neighborhoods or census tract or block groups that are the eligible ones, so that people get a sense of the organization, that'd be great. So I'll be quiet now. Thank you, Tara.
Oh, you're very welcome. And if I could ask Jay and Susmitha for help with the map or point me in the direction of how to do that, then absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's just census tract 804. Which census tract is it?
I'm sorry, you're kind of.
Could you list the census tracts? Maybe I can display the census tract map here.
I don't have. Yeah, I don't have that list in front of me, Susmitha, but if you have the map of Stratford, I mean, that would probably be, I think there's a good majority.
Let me get that, Tara.
Thanks, Jay.
Let me just share the map that I shared with you last week, Tara. That has the census tracts in it. And maybe that will help. Aileen, can you make me the presenter?
Yeah, I think if you can send it out too, Smitha, so that people get a chance to kind of ponder it, that would be useful.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is
Smitha, you're the
census tract.
presenter.
Mhm. I'm assuming it's 8:04, and I don't know if there's any other nearby. So this is a conversation we were having too. I mean, the area median income is roughly $100,000, I think, as of 2023, but Stratford's residents make much less than the area median income and could qualify for some kind of assistance if we had a conversation with HUD to see, how this can be all reprogrammed. I don't know, but it's like the area median income reflects the incomes of people from Fairfield and Trumbull, Monroe, and not just Stratford or Bridgeport. And if you just looked at Bridgeport and Stratford incomes, I think Stratford's incomes are more similar to Bridgeport's, even though the size is half the size, but Bridgeport qualifies for all the programs.
Yeah, and Bridgeport gets anywhere from 2.5 million to 3.5 million on any given grant year. And that sometimes is just the main CDBG portion, not including home, because that tends to be, hundreds of thousands, not necessarily millions with that. And ESG is much less and HOPWA is much less. That would just be maybe 20, 30, 40,000 each. But again, it's formula based on census and need.
One thing I observed, Tara, by working in New Haven, there was sometimes fires that happened without someone's knowledge in the low-income households, and they would use ESG grant money to demo.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. ESG is, again, it's the Emergency Solutions Grant, and it's widely helpful. It's a great program. I find it to be a lot more helpful than even HOPWA at times. And I had hoped that we would be able to be eligible to at least get that here, because I know there, especially in the South End, there's issues of flooding and certain things, and there's ways that we can help. But again, based off our town size, our urgent need, our census, right now we don't get that. But the goal would be, my goal is to grow the department, so it's not just a department of me, and then have, just a little bit more funding coming along, and then being able to help the residents a lot more, because I get calls now for homeowner rehab, and sometimes I'll get calls for down payment assistance. And again, like Glenn had said, that we get X amount of dollars. We have to put 15% towards public service, 20% is the cap for the admin. Then the balance goes towards public service, economic development, and housing type projects. And with the amount we get, it goes very, very quickly. It goes very quickly.
But Tara, those final decisions. Oh, I'm sorry, Liz, I jumped in front of you. I apologize.
That's okay. I just want to mention that Stratford Housing Authority is a recipient of the CDBG funding, and we're really, really grateful for the funding. It happens to assist our state senior and disabled population who reside in that development. And we're grateful for Tara and for her support, that we're able to get the funding simply because we receive no subsidy for these developments. And it truly, truly does make a difference. So thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
By the way, you did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And the only thing I was going to mention too, I think, is that the final decision on the allocation of funds isn't made by you, Tara, correct? Is it the council that is the one that?
No, thankfully, that's taken off my shoulders because administering the program, running the program, I can't also vote as to how the funds get allocated. So from there, we have a subcommittee. So my subcommittee is appointed by the town council. So it's everyone based off of different districts as well. So I have the subcommittee. They then vote the allocations. We have the people come in and present. They vote. And then it goes to town council for a public comment period. And then on May 8th, it will go this year for resolution. So it'll just pass with the town council, but we just have to get their blessing with that.
I also wanted to add that for a job like what Tara is doing, she would need a lot of staff support if we were to expand the program. Like I've seen in the housing division in New Haven, where you have neighborhood specialists who kind of screen the applicants. So when an applicant says he's low income, it's just not enough just looking at their salary statements or tax W-2s, or there's a whole screening process that is involved and a file to be kept, and Tara has to, if she has to provide funds to them, she has to monitor the work, which needs field visits and, a lot more auditing paperwork that has to be kept on file. But if the program were to be expanded and Tara were to have more people, then we can push the cause for affordable housing by actually providing some financial assistance to low-income homeowners through down payment and closing cost assistance through home program. And maybe some of these people just need $10,000 or $20,000 for down payment just to get onto that, mortgage, which the program will provide them, and they can, realize this home ownership as a dream that they have. There's also a rental assistance program that can be utilized for offsetting the cost of rents. It's worth exploring, but then I don't know who makes the final call. Like she said, they have a subcommittee, but is this the partnership that will advocate for the expansion of program, or is it the mayor, or is it the residents? I don't know. Or is it just, it comes from HUD and it's strictly formula based and we cannot move past CDBG alone. Those are the conversations worth having moving forward if, affordable housing has to be thought of through a financial angle and not just through the ADU angle that we're looking at.
And if I could make one comment as well. So if we were to receive any, like if I met with HUD and Smith and I met with them, or decided that, yeah, we were going to get, let's say, extra home funding. The nice thing about these grants is that they also include, if I were to need extra staffing. So like my pay is 100% grant funded. I do not touch the town. It comes out of CDBG, which is why we have that 20% admin cap. And I mean, for everything from paper to pens, it all comes out of my budget. And that's the nice thing. If we do get an expanded program, more funding, I then have the capability to then say, okay, town, I got this funding. I have X amount of dollars to get another staff person or two, and it doesn't hurt the town, which is always a beautiful thing. Any questions?
I just want to say, I think that I think it's very important to include the Stratford Housing Authority in these conversations. And, I'm happy that Liz Sulik is here also to advocate for Stratford Housing Authority. But as the Stratford Housing Authority is thinking of ways to increase the supply of rental housing that would be available, I think that's, when we think about home funds, that would be also be a vessel to increase the stock of affordable housing.
Absolutely. And the Housing Authority, Liz and myself and Lucia, we all work very well
Yeah.
together. And if we did, I don't want to say if, when we get the funding, I want to be positive. It's a new moon. When we get the funding, the Stratford Housing Authority, would hopefully be a partner, with me and us, because I think that that would work very well, because they know the housing part of it and certain things that necessarily that I don't or somebody else. So it would work very well. So that's the goal.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, we do work well together. You're very responsive and on point, so we appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Harold, did you have a question? I saw you raising your hand a little bit before.
No, I was trying to plug in my computer. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. Just didn't want to skip over you. Sorry, Desmond, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. For Liz Sulik, is there a way to increase the stock of Stratford Housing Authority units without new construction?
Well, we would have to redevelop. And one of the things that I've actually tried doing is kind of a tear down of one of our developments, which happens to be in a flood zone, and redeveloping that property with the potential to add more units. But unfortunately, there's not enough funding to do that, at least not this last round that I applied for. But yeah, we're very conscious of trying to add. We have the ability to add units under our federal program, under the Faircloth limit. And I want to say that number is about 47 units, where we could simply put them on to our subsidy calculation and get a portion of that subsidized. But the problem that we're finding in town is those opportunities are limited based on how developed Stratford is. So we have a few ideas, but nothing in the works as of yet.
Yeah, thanks. I was thinking with regard to like the funds that are available through all these options that Tara mentioned, how we contemplate deploying them in the Stratford Housing Partnership in terms of the returns per dollar spent and how, what are the options that we look at? So someone mentioned, I think it was Susmita mentioning subsidizing down payments. Glenn, when we do that, does that add to their numbers? Does that help our numbers, even though they're not rental units, in terms of getting us to the goal line or across the goal line?
I mean, I think it can. The state criteria, there's sort of 4 categories of housing that count to the Affordable Housing Appeals List. Assisted housing, which is exactly what the Housing Authority does, so that counts. We also get tenant rental assistance, which the Housing Authority also helps with in terms of those certificates. We get people who use CHFA or USDA mortgages to buy housing units in town. We get points for those. That's where the down payment assistance for low and moderate income people could attract people to town. And so that gets an affordable housing unit in an existing housing unit. And then the last category is a deed restricted unit. And I think that there are a number of ways the communities can address that, but those are the 4 ways to increase, the 4 ways at this point to increase our numbers.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Jay,
I
did
think,
you have a
yeah,
comment?
Tara, if you could give us the budget too, actually, the proposed 23-24, if you could send that out to us so we could see, the different functional areas where the dollars are going, that might help the housing partnership become familiar with this as well.
Sure thing. It's public knowledge, so absolutely. I can, it hasn't been finally approved by the town
No,
council.
yeah, when it's approved.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I may, Jen, the CDBG dollars it's very competitive. There are a number of organizations that really rely on those funds as well as the town. The sidewalk project, we really do rely on those funds to redo a number of sidewalks. I guess what I'm saying is I don't see a lot of room for new initiatives without crowding out the important ones that are already reliant on those funds.
And
So
that makes, you make a good point with that. The plus side to the end of the grant years is that when we have housing projects, public improvement projects, everything has to go out to bid. So for instance, a project that was funded at $230,000, the lowest qualified bid came in at $180,000. So now you have about $50,000 extra of funding that is now considered reprogramming funds. So at the end of every grant year, I look at the financials, and sometimes there could be anywhere from $100,000 to $400,000 dollars that have been sitting because the project was completed and there was a balance. And the beautiful thing about that as well is that with public improvement and housing pots of money, there is not an expiration date like there is with the public service money and the cap, which is June 30th. After June 30th, any public service that I have on my list here is done. It doesn't matter if they have 10,000 left or 10 cents left. It's done. They can't use that money any longer. But the public improvement, housing, and economic development type money can stay with us anywhere from 3 to 5 years without HUD saying, wait, why do you still have that money sitting there? So the goal is to then come together as the administration and say, okay, what can we do with these funds? Because we want to use them. So we have to put an ad out. It still has to go out to the public. The nonprofits need to know what's going on, but everyone is welcome to put an application in, but how that's decided is within the town and the subcommittee. And, I always say, let's use the money that we have. HUD never wants to see even a penny just sitting there. So those reprogram funds can come in very, very handy at the end of every grant year.
Jay, did you have something you wanted to ask?
I was just, it's slightly off topic, but when Liz was talking about, potential for development and expanding housing stock without new construction, if there's an appetite for the housing authority to partner with private development or redevelopment projects, or if the housing authority needs to be its own sole independent developer. I was just curious about that.
I think it could work either way, Jay, only based on colleagues and what they've done throughout the state. They've done both, where they set up a separate 501c3 or they partner with developers to make that happen. The problem is with private developers that not all of those units and whatever they're building are truly affordable to serve.
Yeah, and the reason why I bring it up is, I would imagine that the housing authority might have a difficult time competing and securing property that might be appropriate for housing, but that the private developers have that capital, but also are going to be providing affordable housing or age-restricted housing, that might fall in nicely into the bucket that that's on your priority list. So maybe that's something that you and I can talk about how you might be able to partner and stay involved in some of these other developments that we're anticipating.
Absolutely. Give me a call.
Good stuff. Okay. Any other questions or comments on Tara's presentation, or any questions for her?
I think it was a great presentation, Tara.
All right, you educated me. I really appreciate what you did, what you had to say.
I'm here. If you guys have any questions or anything, I'm here and I'll respond. So.
Well, here's a question for you and for Liz and for Jennifer. how is coastal resiliency impacting your thinking in terms of funding for coastal resiliency? Sorry.
To my
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's not really necessarily a thought of mine often. Might be more for Liz, possibly.
Yeah, typically, Harold, now if you were going to like build what's considered state housing, they wouldn't allow you to build in a flood zone. With few exceptions under Malloy's term, there was about 30 million that was available for state housing, sponsored portfolios. And we, meaning the Stratford Housing Authority, I want to say I applied in 2017, and you can only do that by actually spending about 150, I think at the time we did, in order to accomplish that application. We were pretty certain that we were going to receive the money, and we did not. So a lot of housing authorities that apply, some can't apply because they don't have that initial outlay of funding. Well, we reapplied for that same funding and we were granted it a few years after that. And the work was going to begin this year, actually shortly, in the next few months. However, it's a long process, and that funding was only received because we were able to prove that number one, we could get a loan for the balance of the work that we needed to do, that we were a recipient of CDBG funding. So the housing authority that goes in there with no money and no help from an outside source won't get funded. So this deal worked for us because of CDBG, because of some of our reserves that we put in, because of the grant and a loan that we had to take out. And with all of that, all the work that needs to be done at the development can't be done. These properties range in 30 to 40, 50 years old, and funding since I've been here, 26 years. This is our first grant for our elderly, and we received one years ago for our family units. But other than that, there's no capital needs work that has been done simply because it's unaffordable. Susmitha?
I think you can apply for FEMA brick grant program as long as you're not matching it with any other state dollars. Then you can apply and elevate the property in a floodplain.
Yeah, we've applied for FEMA during Hurricane Sandy and those types of events and have always been funded. But no, we, to my knowledge, have never applied for one directly.
There's
So
one,
yeah, I'll just look into it.
the application.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
There's an echo. The application window opens in June. So,
Okay.
I want to keep in the contact with Chris Carroll, who's hosting our grant. And then, I don't know why there's an echo.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time understanding it, but I did catch that it opens in June, so I will be definitely looking for that. Because we do here at the Housing Authority, we apply for everything that we think we could possibly be eligible for. So thank you.
You can get 90% or 100% sometimes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on that? I don't know. I guess if you're, can we go on mute if we're not, if you're not gonna speak or ask a question? I'm not sure why there's an echo all of a sudden, but we've got one. So I think that's better. Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks, Tara. Next on our agenda is to review the status of our priority items that we talked about last week. So first item is around initiating discussions with Stony Brook or creating a plan to initiate that discussion. I think we have no updates at this time based on what we heard from the mayor. And then Jay sent out proposed revisions to the accessory apartment regulation. Do we want to go through that now? We have about 13 minutes left. We could talk about that topic.
Thanks, Liz. And all I wanted to do was just kind of introduce it to the group. I'm not expecting any meaningful discussion today. I'm sorry. The zoning commission got together over the past 2 months, I would say, and had some informal discussions and recommendations for me to make some changes to the ADU regulation. All this is kind of being done informally as informal discussion. At that point, the zoning commission requested that once they had some of their feedback, which I am still getting some feedback trickling in here and there, that we refer it to the housing partnership, giving your extensive research and discussion on this during the drafting of the housing plan, to have you all take a pass at it and provide any feedback, recommendations for the zoning commission to consider whenever is appropriate and whenever you all are done having a look. So I know the commission truly appreciates all your efforts and welcomes any comments and feedback that you might have. So thank you.
Great. Susmitha, go ahead. You're on mute. You're on mute, Susmitha. We can't hear you. Sorry.
Sorry. Do you want to give us a high-level overview on what has changed or what will change? Like, what are the items that will be changing?
Well, there's a lot, and so we're not going to be able to do it in 10 minutes. Okay. I would say the highest high level is essentially removing the requirement that it's a family member. Currently, the existing accessory apartment regulations require that it be a family member. The next requirement really is whether or not we're going to be allowing it in detached structures. So I would say those are the two big ticket items, but there are, probably 75 changes throughout this document. So my recommendation is that you all take the time to kind of read through it. I know you really haven't had the time based on when we referred it to you. And then maybe try to plan for some meaningful discussion over the next meeting or two. And, there's no timeline for this. There's no rush in your discussion. But I would say that those are the biggest ticket items for those changes. Some of the other little ones are going to be a bit technical in terms of whether we're allowing them on non-conforming lots and non-conforming structures. I think ultimately we would love to make this available to those who truly need it to stay in their homes, to help them make payments and age in place without it being so cost prohibitive in terms of procedurally going to the Zoning Board of Appeals and seeking variances. It's quite cumbersome now for folks that I know that wish to do this. And, in talking with a lot of my colleagues in surrounding towns that have implemented very similar changes, not identical to what's been proposed by the Zoning Commission here, is that, their experience has been, there has been no, the floodgates, the feeling that the floodgates will be opened based on making these changes. That just has not been their experience in their municipality. So just an interesting anecdotal comment that I think that's important to consider. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions.
If I could just add to what Jay was
Sure.
saying. If I could add to what Jay was saying, you'll see in the actual document, red lettered and strikeouts of what we put in there. A lot of them are straight from the state. Some of the things that we were asking for are just illegal. We have no right to be asking for them, such as the family status and all of that. We're not allowed to ask those questions anymore. So the definition of family is, we must have spent a whole evening on discussing that. But I'm interested in letting this be one of the leaders of we're rewriting all the zoning in Stratford within the next year. And I'm hoping that we can get this done as quickly as possible so that we have the first little packet, and we're going to have many other little packets that we're working on. We are coming close to hiring a consultant. I don't know, but we haven't yet, but we're going to have a consultant who will be working on all of our zoning, including this piece. So,
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, Beth, I saw your hand
Yes,
go
thank
up.
you. And I did have a chance to take a look at the document, and there are very substantial changes. If there are changes that need to be done for reasons, I mean, there's no commentary that we were provided. So perhaps could I ask that somebody go back to the document and provide us with comments on why different changes were entered when it's not obvious? It's not obvious to me, for example, there was one change that had to do with the current zoning of areas. So, and I noticed that change. There's, one major question that I have, if somebody could provide an answer to that, but I think it should be in the document. The change to detached homes. Previously, if a person's situation had changed, the house had to revert back to what it had been before, meaning that the kitchen would be removed. I didn't see any sort of explanation of what would happen with these new homes that are built, detached homes that are built on the property once the primary homeowner's situation has changed. Perhaps they aren't living there anymore. So that's a really major change to what we're calling ADUs, which now is a separate house, can be a separate home up to 1,000 square feet of usable space. So in terms of process, if we can get some commentary on these changes, not simply what the changes are, that way we could focus on the things that we really do need to discuss.
And I think that's part of the discussion for you all to determine. I mean, I'm happy to provide, some commentary, and I think Glenn is going to kind of help assist in some of that commentary as a representative and provide guidance for you all. But I think a lot of that conversation is also important for you all to kind of flush through that as well.
Yeah, maybe I'm not being understood, Jay.
Is that I think a vast majority of these changes are because the regulation currently does not work and serve the needs of the community based on what we see. So I'm happy to provide a cover letter for you.
Yeah,
No, but you could even go into the document and provide a comment. That way we could look at specifics, not a cover letter.
And I think, Beth, what you're saying is, and correct me if I'm getting it wrong, but I think what you're saying is if we could understand perhaps what drove the commission to make the change, like Harold said, we just can't we can't require it to be family, it's illegal. So we should know that, because then that's not a point we're going to debate. If it's illegal, then it's illegal and we need to take it out. So I think that's a good point, Beth, and I think it would be helpful to just understand the background. But I do think we should probably plan to put this on the agenda, because we only have 4 minutes left, but for the next meeting and spend a substantial, portion of the meeting kind of going through this so that we can have discussion. So if everyone could read the document before the next meeting, and Jay and Glenn, any, and Harold, any additional details you could provide us before then, that would be great. One thing I did want to say about the next meeting is that I will be away on the date of the scheduled May meeting, which I think is May 18th. So we could either keep the meeting as scheduled and someone else, Harold maybe, or someone else could act as chairperson for that meeting and carry on, or I could do the following Thursday at noon, whatever the team prefers.
I'd propose to do it the following Thursday and have you there, Jen.
Okay. Does the 25th work for folks?
Fine for me.
Okay, great. So is that okay, Susmitha? Yeah. Okay, then we'll send out the,
Excuse me,
Sorry.
I have a conflict. I have another meeting.
okay. Okay, so Eileen, could we find out if we would have a quorum for the 25th of May, maybe send out a meeting, an email, and then we can change the date on that. If not, we could just push ahead until June too, if we need to, but okay. Go ahead, Susmitha.
So the POC draft will be out by May 1st, and I will share with everyone who participated in the outreach. Like, I'll be sending a lot of emails. Sometimes you may get double emails because you're sitting on 2 or 3 boards. But if the housing partnership members would like to review the draft, that's an agenda item to add for next month. But most of the recommendations are from our housing plan, not substantial changes, very few changes or additions to include ADA related improvements for housing. So yeah, I mean, I just wanted to put it out there if you want to,
Yeah, I think we could put both items on the next meeting agenda and talk about the plan and this document. And then if we have to carry over to the following month, we could do that as well. Okay, great.
Jen,
Yes.
could we possibly move the meeting to the Wednesday if Liz can if we could all make that? I'm not sure why.
Wednesday, I'm away. So I'm away.
27th.
I'm away from the 16th to the 24th. So if you're moving it in either direction, I won't be, unless we move to the 25th or later, I won't be able to attend. I'm going to a wedding in Aruba, so sorry.
Oh, sounds rough.
Yeah.
That definitely sounds more fun.
Okay. All right, so we'll send an email out about the next meeting date and get that finalized for everyone. It is 1 o'clock on the dot, so do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Great, second?
Second.
Great, okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Have fun on Aruba.
Thank you.